Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into one of the most frustrating universal challenges in the corporate world, cross-functional communication. If you've ever felt like your message is just getting entirely lost in translation at work, well, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention. So picture this. Have you ever poured your heart into a perfectly accurate, meticulously researched report, only for an executive to completely lose patience with it? Why? Because it just didn't connect to their frame of reference. It is a crushing feeling, right? The data is spot on, but the communication still completely fails. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover why communication fails, look at what we call altitude and longitude, discuss how AI is shifting the landscape, and then wrap up with a highly practical operating model. Section 1, Why Business Communication Fails and the Missing Map. Think about what happens when a system goes down. Your engineering team explains the issue by zeroing in on workflows, mechanics, and architecture dependencies. But pitch that exact same explanation to the CFO. They are going to tune out. Why? Because they are laser-focused on cost, risk, and business continuity. It's the exact same event, but it sounds completely alien depending on who is listening. Communication breakdowns rarely happen because of a lack of facts. They happen because those facts aren't tuned to the listener's frequency. Moving right along to Section 2, Altitude, the vertical dimension. Think of altitude as the vertical dimension of your message, basically how detailed or how abstract you need to be. Low altitude is all about the mechanics, the step-by-step processes. If you're an operator or an engineer, you absolutely need this causal clarity. Then you have mid-altitude. This acts like a translation layer for managers, connecting those nitty-gritty facts to resource trade-offs. And finally, high altitude. This is for the executives. They don't need the weeds. They need decision-oriented outcomes and strategic direction. Now, here is a massive mindset shift. Altitude is not a hierarchy of intelligence. Not at all. It is purely a requirement of relevance. Low altitude isn't, lesser communication. It's just finely tuned for getting things done. And high altitude? It isn't just vague corporate fluff. It's strategic abstraction specifically designed for making big decisions. All right, Section 3, Longitude, the business frame. If altitude is vertical, longitude is horizontal. It represents the specific business domain you're speaking to. Take an AI initiative, for example. If you're talking to the tech team, you have to frame it around model performance and architecture. But take that to finance, and you better be talking about return on investment and capital allocation. Or legal, for them, it's all about data governance and compliance. You literally have to speak the dialect of the domain. Let's see what happens when we combine these two dimensions during a real crisis, like a massive IT outage. The truth of what happened doesn't change one bit. But if you're in a low-altitude, tech-longitude mindset, you're looking at root causes and recovery times. Shift that over to high-altitude and finance longitude, and suddenly that exact same server failure is a serious conversation about revenue exposure and customer trust. The facts are identical, but the translation is worlds apart. We can actually map this out into a practical cheat sheet for different audiences. CEOs and CFOs, they generally live up at high altitude. They care about enterprise impact and prioritization. CTOs and CIOs are usually mid to high, balancing technical risk with overall capability. And the engineers are at low to mid, focusing heavily on system specifics. The golden rule to take away here is incredibly simple. Always start exactly where your audience lives. You can always drill down into the details or zoom out later, but you have to hook them at their altitude first. Which brings us to Section 4, Communication in the AI Era, Speed versus Translation. AI is a real double-edged sword here. Sure, it makes drafting emails and memos wildly fast, and the polish is great, but it heavily raises the risk of generating generic, context-free messaging. It creates this dangerous paradox where you have these beautifully written, perfectly grammatical outputs that completely fail to build genuine trust. Why? Because they lack that human tuning, the specific altitude and longitude adjustments that a real audience actually needs. There's a fantastic quote from our source material on this. The winning leader is not the one who produces the most content, but the one who can interpret complexity for each audience with precision and authenticity. AI absolutely cannot substitute for human judgment about organizational stakes and tone. Because we are basically drowning in AI-generated content right now. Your role as a nuanced human translator is more valuable than ever before. You aren't just passing along information anymore. You are an interpreter of complexity. And finally, Section 5, a practical operating model. Let's put this into practice with a 4-step operating model.
Step 1. Explicitly identify your audience and the specific decision they need to make. Step 2. Choose your altitude. Do they need extreme detail, a middle ground translation, or high-level strategy? Step 3. Pick the longitude. Are you in finance, tech, legal, risk? And step 4. Prepare on-demand supporting detail. You absolutely have to define the audience first and craft specialized message variants. Just blasting out one generic, one-size-fits-all memo? Yeah, that just doesn't work.
Before we wrap, a quick warning about a few common pitfalls. First, watch out for oversimplification. Sometimes we try so hard to reach that high executive altitude that we accidentally strip away the essential, credibility-building details. Second is translation drift. This is when the actual substance of your message subtly morphs and changes as you move between departments. You want to avoid that for sure. And third is inconsistency. You have to keep your underlying facts and risks stable. Adjusting your message for your audience is about organizing the truth for relevance, never ever about dumbing it down or twisting the facts. So, in a business world that is completely overflowing with noise, you have a choice to make. Are you just going to broadcast perfectly accurate facts and cross your fingers that they land? Or will you master the discipline of translating the truth to the exact altitude and longitude your audience actually needs? Using this map to drive genuine alignment is an absolute game changer. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and good luck out there translating.